And we're on.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Gambit Stratagem podcast, Health and Wealth edition.
Health and wealth. Where's the thing?
Where's what thing?
Don't we have the sweet little...
I was playing music before you.
Oh, okay. I was like, don't we have the sweet guitar lick?
Before you sat down.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it is though.
There it is.
Oh, yeah, I actually got our names up today.
Nice.
So that's neat. I'm Andrew Essick. This is John Gramlich.
Hello.
We're back again with some health and wealth. We were discussing. John still can't see the camera feed, but we'll get to that.
That's fine. I
We'll
don't care.
fix
I
that
don't need to
someday.
see what I look like.
It probably involves me buying more equipment that I don't need.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, last time where we left off, we were discussing.
Habits to do less.
Well, yeah, but first out, how have you been?
Good.
Let's do an intro.
Let's talk. Yeah. We took a week off last week because...
And we might every week.
That's
frankly.
true. That's fair.
We're as I was going to say, this is either a limited engagement podcast or it's going to go on forever.
Hard to say.
And it might be every week or every other week. I'll try to if you are watching if you're watching it live or after the fact, whatever, I will try my best to schedule out the live. So like I just scheduled it like an hour ago, but it'll let you know if you're on Facebook or whatever that we will be going live at X time. So if I know that we're doing it, I'll try and schedule it out.
Yep.
Ahead of time. So what's good with you?
Yeah, a lot of things. A lot of things. So I had surgery last Monday. So we're officially a little over 1 week post-op.
Elective.
Yes, elective surgery.
Important to.
It is important surgery. Yeah, it is important to clarify. Yeah, but it was a really good procedure. So had have had crazy weight loss over the last 8 years, and was able to trade some services with a surgeon here in town to get my gynecoplasty repaired and some loose skin removed. So that was really cool. Been something that's been on my brain for a while, and excited to get it done. So
yeah, and that's pretty cool because that's pretty health and wealthy too. Like you didn't technically pay for it.
Correct.
Which is neat.
Very neat, and again, kind of like just a good confidence boost too, to be like, oh yeah, like my skill sets that I in my career are valuable to.
Well, not everybody
trade. Yeah,
I've gotten that a lot in the gym line of work for whatever reason.
Right.
It's like bartering is kind of like a thing.
And I mean, I just truthfully,
I think in some lines of work you just don't see that as much, and people don't think of it.
I didn't. I was meeting with the practice because they wanted to hire me, and I then actually kind of turned it and said, "Well, do you guys ever trade?" And he goes, "Actually, yeah. Like that is a common thing, because both have specialties in very, very different ways, obviously. But it's been really beneficial, and they're awesome. And it was, I can't say enough good things. So it's been a really great experience. So,
cool.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, congrats.
Thanks. Moving right along.
I don't really have anything new to report.
That's cool.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I hung out with some. Kelly and I went out of town, had a nice little time away.
I was going to say, you had a good trip. Yeah.
And it was like just during the week, which is awesome.
Yeah.
To kind of like be in a position where like that was a goal I set out for myself a couple of years ago with my mentor, was just to be able to take time whenever I needed it. And the ultimate goal was to be able to just like take off for 2+ weeks and have the gym kind of stand on its own two legs. And being that Kelly and I are two of the major key components of keeping the gym running, or have been historically, that was a big deal. So yeah, to be able to bolt off Kelly's two roommates that she lived with, and she lived out in Boston and worked at Reebok. Both also had babies about 3 months behind us, 4 months maybe. I think they're 5 weeks or 6 weeks old.
Yeah. And you guys did some really awesome pumpkin pictures.
Yes. went in really hard. Well, you know how it goes. It's one of those things where like, so Jen is like, her mom sent a bunch of stuff to do, like an ideas, a Pinterest board. Like Jen's flipping through her iPad, like here's some. We're doing all this stuff with They bought paint. We're doing like footprint art and with babies, and I'm like, whatever. It's kind of stuff that Kelly and I are like, it was not stuff we would ever do on our own. And then they were like, we got all these pumpkins. Like we want to do these like cut leg holes in these pumpkins and sit the babies in there. And you're like,
I mean, to be fair, it was very cute.
Right. So, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And then we're going to do it. And I'm like, they're staging up inside and in front of like the fireplace. And I go in and take a couple shots. And I'm like, guys, this is not going to work. Like, I'm sorry. I don't want to like take over this operation, but like, this is not a good, the lighting's bad. Like you got to bring in some extra lights. And I just went into full,
hell yeah,
amateur photographer mode. And then I'm like, we got to move everything out to the front porch. We got to restage it. And
hey, it worked though. They look good.
Yeah, and everybody was just like, okay, hey, like you handle that. And I was like, if we're doing this, I'm gonna do it.
We're gonna do it right.
Correctly.
Darn it.
Yeah. And yeah, it came out pretty good. So it was super fun. We were gone like Monday to Thursday, so it was kind of
great.
Wasn't even a weekend. It was like cool.
Yeah.
Where do you have the list pulled up?
I do have the list pulled up.
I didn't pull it up, of course.
We hit 5? We stop at number 5, so we've got 6 through 13. I think some of these are actually a little bit quicker too than last week's.
Super.
So
what is number 6?
Number 6 is always the stairs, never the elevator.
I'm just gonna write these up really quick. Talk us through it.
Yeah. So it says both literally and figuratively, opt for the harder route, embrace challenges, push yourself out of your comfort zone. You'll learn so much about yourself and what you're capable of. Maybe corny, but it's still sage advice. This one's interesting. I like that it said maybe corny, but it's still sage advice. Because to me, it is a little corny.
It is, but it's it's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's like, there's a lot of different ways to say the same thing. And the thing that immediately comes to mind is with everybody, including myself, hopping on board with cold showers and cold plunges.
Yeah.
That's one of the key things. Like people are like, what are the actual benefits? And there's a lot of benefits, but one of them is just doing something really hard.
Yeah.
And
I almost want to like rewrite number 6 just because I just think it's corny how it's written. Always the stairs, never the elevator. It's like, do something really hard every day.
Yeah. And
doesn't matter what it is.
As somebody who's married to a person who will always take the harder route, whether it's good or not. And I'm somebody who's always like, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly where my brain went. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. It needs to be rewritten. But the point is sage
the point.
advice,
yeah. The sentiment is valid.
The point is sound. The logic is sound. And that's why there's a description and not just a bullet point.
Exactly.
So we can read all
number
the way
7.
But well, I think there's a few things. Like I took a cold shower this morning.
Yeah.
Super invigorated, but I think it's kind of the same as like when you come in and knock out your workout at 5:30 or 6:45 in the morning. It's just like the rest of the day just seems like this downhill coast. Like you've already climbed the hard part.
Yeah, I mean, I had two. So schedule perspective, I coached the 5:30 a.m. and 6:45 right before this, and I had two folks. One of my 5:30 and one of my 6:45 did not want to be here at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a quick reminder of like, yeah, but you still got yourself up.
Yep.
At 4:55 or 5 a.m.
You got up to check the box.
You literally did, and you ended up having a very good workout, and you're done. Like you set your day up so much better than you would have otherwise.
Well, I think I said something. I think I said something about it last podcast, and you said, "Hey, that's coming up later." But it was just that point of like, life doesn't ever get easier. It's the same with CrossFit. Like people, these workouts are so hard. It's like, well, the workouts never get easier.
Right.
They're like, I wish I was as fit as so and so, and it's like, well, they're working just as hard as you.
Right.
It's just it's a sliding scale.
Yep.
So it's like one of the best skills you can build in life is the ability to do difficult things, not avoid them.
Well, I would say to do them earlier in your day, because I think you build a habit over time versus like there's I feel like the longer you wait in the day, the more likely your brain creeps in and goes, man, I don't need to do that or this or that or whatever. So it's
I think it's kind of
forming in that sense.
Yeah, it's kind of easier to knock them out earlier in the day, but it also anytime you can do a difficult thing, it's like just
do it.
Just do it. Never write to-dos in stone.
I love this. This is like my daily motto because I've got so many different things going on. I have a list on my iPad. I just call my docket.
Yeah.
It's just my J-Gram docket, and it like I rewrite it almost every day and update it every night. And Tom thinks I'm crazy because he's like, "Why are you just rewriting it?" And I'm like, "Well, it changes. It changes, and the priority changes, and I love that. Plus, too, it also avoids like I could get a lot of stuff done, but if I put everything on a to-do list and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get all these things done, and then you don't.
Yeah.
Well, then you're like, well, then now I've just failed. So I love that. I love this one.
For me, it's been the to-do list has been a really powerful tool that I'm still perfecting. But my problem is whatever I have, it's a notebook or it's an app. I've been using the Google task list lately. It's just like super simple and really dumb. I mean, you can run multiple checklists. So I can have like a shopping list, a Gambit list, a personal list. You just check them off. It is really rewarding to like click them off. But one of my big issues is like the check financials daily. I don't check it every day.
Right.
So like I get up like this.
And it shifts, which is fine.
I bring up the check the financials daily because it's like that's a great way to just like you check your business financials or your personal financials. It's a great like barometer just to see where you are, recheck your priorities, all that kind of stuff. And the to-do list is kind of the same. It's like, yeah, you don't have to pull it up and knock off everything on that list today or knock off everything on that list ever. But it's a great way to just like recheck with your priorities and just kind of formulate a plan of attack. And it's like it was one of the things I read recently from some source. I don't know. It was an anecdotal thing, but they were like, I get up and I do 30 minutes of cardio in the morning, and that's kind of when I plan. Somebody who was like she was a housewife with like 3-4 kids, and she's like, I get up before the kids are awake. I do 30 minutes of cardio, and like that's when I figure out how my day's gonna go. And then I immediately, and she's one of these people that's got this really tight schedule. She's got like an hour and a half to get up and knock out a workout, breakfast, laundry, all this stuff like before the kids wake up. Then she's getting them ready for school. And I've never been that type of person. I'm always like, I just want to wake up and kind of like settle in.
Yeah.
But I was like, that resonated with me for some reason. I'm like, cool. If you get up and you're feeling kind of restless in bed or whatever, don't look at your phone. Like sit there and waste time. Or like sometimes I'd be like, I really just want to sleep for another hour. Like I'm going to put something on my phone that's dumb that'll kind of put me back to sleep and I'll rest up a little bit. It's like, no, if you're up and your mind is turning, go get on the bike downstairs or something and just think about your day and
I think
get your head right.
Yeah.
Like, don't even worry about the workout.
Exactly.
For me, it's just like, just get on the bike. It doesn't have to be just
and
pedal.
That's even when like, for me, when I'm looking at like my docket or what I've got coming up for the day or whatever, sometimes it's like daunting to the point of like, well, where do you start? And what you just said resonated with me because it's like, well, if your mind is turning and you're sitting in bed versus trying to go back to bed, just start your day.
Yeah.
Just get up and start your day. And it's the same with me with work projects or, photography or whatever else. It's like, well, pick something and start, because you'll get into that flow state sooner than you realize. You know what I mean? You'll get grooving, but it's just, you got to start, which is the same thing that applies to the people that wake up and come to work out at 5:30,
Yeah.
Number 8.
Yeah, which leads us right into the next one.
No social media, email, or text when you wake up. I am horrible at this.
So bad.
Horrible
Same.
at this.
First thing I do is roll over, grab my phone.
Yeah. I will say I'm good about no social media, but email and text, oh no. If I can get ahead of some communication out to clients or whatever else, I'm terrible at it.
And I'm
terrible at it.
I just fall into that, like that. These apps are all engineered to make us open them.
Literally. Yep.
Like I like Facebook for a lot of things. I think Facebook is a great place to have like our members group, and I started like a family group there, a private group to share photos and stuff and keep up with some more like extended family. Great for that. But Facebook spends millions and billions of dollars to try and figure out how to make you open that app multiple times a day.
For no other reason than just opening the app.
There are just it always has little notifications on it. And I pull it up and I'm like, there's nothing in here. Why did you tell me I had a notification? Like none of this. It'll be like,
yeah, but it told you that someone that's connected to you 7 circles away.
That did a thing, thought about doing a thing, and you're like,
and here you go.
Yeah. And good luck figuring out how to turn those off. So I end up opening like Reddit or Facebook or something just to like scroll through. And so yeah, that's one of the reasons I started just working out, because I was like, just do something else.
Do something.
You're gonna do something. Just do something reasonable.
Yeah.
Or useful and semi-productive. But that's so hard for me. I don't know why.
And I like the descriptor here. It's like pick 2 to 3 days a week when you don't don't just say, okay, I'm gonna do it and go cold turkey. And say, okay, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm not like Fridays. Yeah. Fridays, like Tom and I get up and we go have breakfast at 7:30 in the morning because it's just our time to go have breakfast. And I'm like, dang, I should do that every day with my personal life, but I don't. I'm terrible.
And this, like the bullet points there, it's like read a book, review your goals, reflect on lessons that could be a good tweet or zeet or whatever the hell is going on over there. Exactly. So like, yeah, if you're somebody who's in a position where like I often feel the pressure to create social media content as a gym owner, because that's what all gym owners do and coaches. It's like, you got to be putting information out there and you got to be talking about the dangers of sugar and all this kind of stuff. And which is why we're doing this podcast. But that's a good time, like wake up in the morning and just think about like, all right, what is my message for the day? Like what's a piece of content I can make? Review your goals, which is exactly what we're talking about with our to-do list. Like get up and check in with your to-do list. And don't, for me, as we touched on previously, like it's not about creating a bunch of pressure to knock this stuff off your list make sure it's 100% accurate. It's just a thing you check in with. It's like, just look at it every day and just start with that. It's funny how many times I came up with that like snippet or whatever, that quote adage to say like, just check the box in terms of like getting into the gym. And it's funny how many times I find myself like saying with that, checking daily financials, checking my to-do list, like just check the box, just open it, check the box that you opened it. Don't worry about, like, stuff will just happen organically. You don't have to totally systemize everything.
Number 9. This, you take this one because you like this one.
Yeah. Let me edit this really quick. Add a how versus won't check-in.
I feel like I'm more in the won't camp, and you're good at calling me into the
yeah.
How could that?
And so is Kelly. Yeah. So this is. I think it was the same. I think it was Cody Sanchez that put this list together. That I saw this elsewhere when she's talking about buying businesses. Well, I'll just read the description here really quick. We often tell ourselves that won't work instead of how could that work. Where are you saying won't to yourself? I won't reach 100K this year. Buying this business won't work. A side hustle won't be worth it. Let's practice some reckless optimism. I love that. Reckless optimism.
Love reckless optimism.
How could this work? And that's one of the big like relationship things that I think like Kelly and I have struggled with is I like to talk. I like reckless optimism. I like to like, I think I often seem like an overly negative person, but when it comes in terms of like when I look back on opening my gym or, you know, buying a house or a car or what, like it just kind of like a lot of your major life decisions. It's like, I love to run down how could this work? What would this look like if I did it, instead of just saying like, oh, that's too expensive, or God, imagine how much, you know, back when I played music, I was like recording an album with some people, and I never once stopped to think, oh man, what if nobody likes it or whatever. It just was, I was caught up in the moment, and I had people around me that were being positive. It was just like, all right, how do we make this work? It was never a question of like, will it or won't it? It was just like, doesn't matter. Like, how do we do it? How are we going to reach the finish line?
Yes.
And I was just recapping this the other day. Like when I look back on some of those things, I had that again when I opened the gym, where it was like, I was borrowing money, I was buying equipment. I was like taking a few steps that to a lot of people probably seem terrifying. And I think if I had to do it all over again, it would be terrifying. But at the time, never even crossed my mind. It was like, how am I going to make this work?
Right.
This is what I decided to do. I'm borrowing money. I'm asking for favors. I'm going to find a way to get people in the door and make it work. And I think if people ever had that, they often lose it, or they never had it to begin with. That just sense of like, and the conversation I had with Kelly the other day was like, just because we're having this conversation doesn't mean I'm going to do it, or we have to do it. If we talk about picking up and moving or whatever, any of these life possibilities, like you can run down the whole list. Like, well, we'd have to sell this, or we'd have to empty out this savings account, or we'd have to have this conversation with this person, and we'd have to hire somebody at the gym to take care of this job for us while we're away or something.
It's funny for me too, because like a big part of my day job, my like actual 9 to 5 is feasibility checks. So a lot of times when I get served a new project at work, I look at the scope, I look at the like design or the engineering requirements or whatever, and go, okay, will what the business is asking from us, will that actually work? Like, can we actually build that? Will it actually run properly? And so I'll run through all the different checks and whatnot, and then make a recommendation for the solution, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're actually going to do it.
Yep.
But I am horrible at that in my personal life. Tom is like the best dreamer ever. He's like, let's just dream about all these different things we could do. And I'm like, but we couldn't do that because we would have to do this, and this, and this. And he's like, just dream for a sec. I'm like, yeah, well, okay.
And I found myself as I get older, like as I started to build a little bit of, I don't want to say wealth, but as I started to build more value and assets and the business and all that, all these decisions became more nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And there was a lot more pressure. And I kind of started to shut down that part of my brain a little bit. And reading that comment again was like, you don't have to follow through with this. You don't have to do anything. Like talking it down, putting it on a whiteboard, talking to people about it. Get your team or whoever your support group is, your spouse, your partner, your parents, your friends, your coworkers, whatever. Like get them in a room, talk through it, really get down to nuts and bolts about it, and decide. And like, man, since I've read that, I've multiple times been like, oh, okay, let's follow this down the rabbit hole. Like let it play out in your head like a movie. Like what are the chain reactions and what happens when you get to the end? And you're like, nah, I think we're gonna keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think as we've discussed too, individually a couple times, it's like one of the most liberating things is just the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
The realization that you have the control to make change, and that was on the table. It's like I could have done that, even if it was like, oh no, it's not worth my time.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying like, oh, it's too scary or it's too much risk or whatever, you actually played the whole thing through.
I mean, selling our house and move to a condo, prime example.
Yeah.
We're leaning in.
Yeah.
This seems fun. Let's do it.
You followed through.
Let's do it. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot about yourself when you sell a house.
You really do.
You really do.
And it makes me think, I'm like, I guess my parents have lived in a few houses now, but for the bulk of their life, they lived in 2 houses.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people from previous generations, and especially like smaller towns. It was like you maybe got a starter home and then a second home. It's still
like our generation a little bit. I think people go, this is where I'm going to be for this long, undisclosed amount of time.
Yeah, Joel always famously said him and Christine lived in an apartment together, and he was like, I don't ever want to move again. And we're like, Joel, you're going to buy a house at some point. You can't rent forever. Like that's just irresponsible, and that's why we're here. Health and wealth.
Health. All right.
Renting steals money from you.
We got 4. 1, 2, 3. We got 4 of these left. 1, 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Decentralized management. This is interesting.
I just love the first line. Do not hire a dog and then try to bark for it.
Mm-hmm. Also, sorry, 2 seconds. I have inspection stuff happening, and my plumber is calling me. So
okay.
Andrew's going to talk about decentralizing management while I take a quick phone call.
Yeah. Yeah, do not hire a dog and then try to bark for it, which is just the silliest, just a silly way to say it. And I love that, but that's the kind of stuff that just gets stuck in your head. Be relentless in hiring and relaxed in oversight. We review short and sweet scorecards every Friday. Low scores, we know that we want to improve on. High scores, we evolve from what is working. And I think this also, kind of what comes to mind is, like in working with Two Brain Business, one of the big things was when you hire people, interview them 4 times, which is, to me, seemed like an insane number of times. Like, I got a business degree, a 4-year business degree, and no one ever talked about hiring people at all. So the concept is like, you do your work up front. You know, if you hire the right people and you work with the right people, and I think this can extrapolate out to, you know, clients, friends, everything. It's like, if you do some work up front, you really vet these people, make sure before you invest in other people that they're going to pay off in whatever capacity that is. Then you don't have to micromanage those people. So, I mean, literally, Kelly's dad is a vet, veterinarian. He's kind of quasi-retired, but you know, talking with him about what kind of dog we wanted is like, is it going to spend all day at the gym? Is it going to, you know, what are you going to be doing with it? And kind of like went over all of our standards, and he was like, you want this? They're expensive, but I recommend these Daisy dogs. And I was kind of like, you know, I don't know. We'll just go get something. We'll get a rescue or whatever. And he kind of convinced me, like, you don't want the risk of an unknown breed. You get like a pit bull mix or something in there and it bites someone, you're going to lose any lawsuit you get involved in if you're going to have this animal hanging around your business. And yeah, he turned us on to these Daisy dogs. And if you've been around the gym, you know the Daisy dogs are fantastic and never looked back. So literally don't hire a dog and then try to bark for it. Next. Well, John's still on the phone. Whoops. Do not try to be the arrow.
Okay, I mean, that's, yeah, well, that's, I guess.
11, did I forget to?
That's okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. So 9 to 11 tomorrow. Sorry, I'm in the middle of work, so I kind of have to hop.
Don't try to be the arrow, be the archer. The most important people you hire are your COO, CSO, or chief of staff. Instead of command down structure, I feel like John's going to have way more insight on this, or already in verbiage. I don't know what a COO or a CSO is, or a chief of staff, honestly, because my company's not big enough to have any of those things.
That's fair. So we're on number 11.
Yeah.
COO, Chief Operating Officer. CSO, probably Chief Sales Officer, or Chief of Staff, or Chief Staff Officer, or Chief of Staff, which is like also maybe a Chief People Officer.
I'll tell you what does connect with me. Honestly, we can sum it up and skip over all the text that's here, I think. And it, as a lot of these rules do, they kind of play off each other. So I think we just talked about decentralizing management. I tell you the goal, you pick the path.
Yeah.
And if you did that, if you did number 10 correctly, you hired a dog you don't have to bark for.
Mm-hmm.
You can give them a goal and pick the path, and that's just based on like some people I've worked with in the past. When I was confused about that person, I don't think I've ever really fired anybody. I might have technically, but things kind of just organically would come to an end. But if I look, I guess this is a case of, I always used to think, how can I make this person work? Instead of saying they won't work. And the reality is, in this situation, there are people that just won't work. And that like, I tell you the goal, you pick the path. I've had worked with people in the past where I was like, here's what I want to get done. And they're like, cool, tell me how to get there.
And it's like, no.
Well,
yeah,
I need you to tell yourself.
Yeah.
When you put the right person in the role, your job becomes a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
And some of this, like, I don't know how applicable this is for some people because you're not running your own business necessarily, but I extrapolate a lot of this out to friendships and just relationships in life too. Like when as we've talked a lot, we evaluate all of our relationships, I think. And, that's just kind of like a mindset you can have for your whole life. Like,
I think so this resonates with me, and my work situation is a little bit different than yours. So I think the perspective I see in this is sometimes you're at a job and you're working with a team member, or you are the team member that you just know it's not working, but you like the people, you like to be there, you like working there. So it's incredible awareness if you can say, hey, I have these skills that are not applying correctly or being applied correctly to this role. However, I want to be here. You want me to be here. We like each other. How do we make this work? So from an employee to employer perspective, even if you're not running your own business, if you're kind of if you're stuck at work, or if you're feeling stuck at work, self-reflection is super key, kind of how you mentioned with relationships, because you can assess well, what about it is not working? Is it the job duty specifically itself, or is it the space and the people and everything else about it? Because if it's the job duties, that likely can shift. You can change a little bit and mold to how you're going to add value.
But I think even if you're an individual who doesn't manage people or own a business or anything, you can think about every time you hire someone or you patronize a business, like, I'm hiring you to do a job. Did you do the job? I feel like I've worked with people in the past, like you hire a electrician or whatever, and it's like, hey, here's what I want to get done. Can you just figure out, you need to, what should we do this or do that? And I'm like, I don't care.
I'm not the expert. I don't know.
I literally,
I need you to be the
give
expert.
me a budget and you tell me.
Yeah.
And that's a good, maybe I've been spoiled about who I work with, but that's, we feel that way about anytime I'm giving someone money to get something done. It's like, I don't want to micromanage what you're doing.
I just want you to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I talked to a couple people about trying to get jobs done around the house, like contractor type jobs. And I mean, how difficult that can be to find people to do that. And I'm talking to a few people who kind of work in the field, and like, well, you should just track down a plumber and then track down an electrician and then track down this person. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
I want to do that.
And that's why general contractors have a job. It's just I don't want to. I've seen general contractors struggle to get, because the plumber shows up and he's like, well, I can't finish this till the carpenter does this. And then he disappears for 2 weeks. And then you have the carpenter show up and then everybody's just standing around. 12.
Don't drown in data.
Yep.
I like this a lot. So the explanation on this is keep it simple, stupid, or KISS.
KISS.
Is what it says. KISS. Yep. More stats means more noise. Some people might disagree with this. They're like, well, data's great. Data's great. I was like, okay, sure. Data's great.
Yeah.
But what it says here and what I agree with is pick the 3 to maybe 5, but 3 most important stats to see if, your business, or again, if you don't have a business or aren't managing people or whatever, pick the 3.
Life.
Yeah. Pick the 3, performance metrics in your life.
I mean, we talk about
relationships.
We talk about checking in with our net worth and stuff. Find, if you have a lot of different investments, or somebody has a lot of, you're involved in multiple companies, or, I was talking with, last week I was talking with Matt Frazier. He's somebody he's like, oh, I invested in this company. I did this. Talk about a guy who probably can't keep track of where he's got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Invested in Ice Barrel. And I always heard that about Ben Bergeron back in the day. He was on the board of directors for Killcliff, Fuel for Fire. I'm pretty sure he was heavily involved with Noble at some point. And still running his own company. These are whatever that looks like for you. And it could just be super simple. You're well, not simple, but it could be seemingly basic, you're trying to manage your household and your income and your car and your insurance. Simplify your net worth, and you've got take 100% of the data and focus on 20 to 30% of it. That's really important. Find those things and that's going to vary based on your goals. And this is like, you have to distill this down because, again, this Cody Sanchez that wrote this list, is her big thing is buying businesses. So obviously there's a lot of stuff to look at. You go in and buy a business that's doing $2 million a year in revenue. Like, there's a ton of stuff to look at. So she's like, just get the 20% of stuff. And this is a good statement here. Like, if you can't read the scorecard in 60 seconds, it's too complex.
Yep.
I like that.
I like the concept of a scorecard too. Quick hits.
Yeah. And I think we have just enough time to knock off the final.
Oh, look at that.
The final thing on the list.
This is good. You take this one.
This is good actually, because we were talking about this the other day, and I couldn't remember where I saw it. Let me type it up here really quick. Be the dumbest person in your friend group. When you're not, move on. That's it. That's a huge text bar on the top of the screen. That's fine. It's covering the entire screen. Be the dumbest person in your friend group. When you're not, move on. I get a lot of pushback on this one, and I can see why. This is a harsh. And when you and I talked about this months ago, it was like, I was like, here we go. Here we go, John. Like, bear with me here.
This is tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, and I think a lot of people would still, even after reading this, could go like, yeah, I don't care about that. Like, I'm just, whatever. So, bear that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. I get a lot of pushback on this one. The Twitter and Instagram echo chambers claim this is horrible human behavior, but here's my take. As they say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, which I've never heard that, but that makes sense. By being the dumbest, you're soaking up knowledge and using it as stepping stones. It's like a game of intellectual leapfrog. You can still be friends and grateful for their wisdom. Think of these more like allies than friends.
I love that. I think that's great.
Friends will look at the 5,000th picture of your baby without pulling their hair out. Friends are down for cocktail parties and nights on the town. Friends will ask you why you work so much. Friends say, why don't you just slow down? Allies, though, keep you going. They're the wet blanket when you need it. God, all those times I've thought, I really need a wet blanket. They don't accept
regular thought
anything but
head.
your best. Shared goals, shared vision, new levels call for new allies.
I think she explains that very well.
Yeah.
And softens it a bit in a way that's like, oh, okay, we're not saying like, no, go say screw you, friends. Like, that's not it.
Yeah, and I would add to that, like, I think an important maybe distinction there is like, you can have friends and allies.
Yeah.
You don't have to choose between.
Correct.
You can have and it kind of like, that was what kind of like a liberating concept for me. It was like, oh, I can seek out people that know more about certain things than I do and learn from them, and not abandon people I know and love along the way.
Right.
But it's just like, have you ever heard, I think you have because we talked about it, but if you've ever heard that statement, buy the cheapest house on the nicest block, that's like the smart money. It's that for friendships.
Right.
Or like relationships. Like, go.
I think it's also like good to point out, you don't have like you said, you can have friends and allies. You also can have like different types of conversations with different friends. Like, it all doesn't have to meld into the same conversation, and that's okay. Like, that's completely okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can, like she says, your friends will look at your 5,000th baby photo, and it's like, yeah, that's great. You can still have that. It's not like you have to stop doing that. And I think that's a really, what I like what we're doing with health and wealth, because these mindset, these types of mindsets and these groups or whatever can get toxic so fast. Like, when you get on social media, you get these guys that are like the rise and grind, and it's why I chuckle to myself or put like an asterisk when I say like, oh, I get up early and do cardio, whatever. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's guys on Instagram that are literally, they sit down with the microphone and they mock like, all right, here's my daily routine. I get up at 3 a.m. I drink a pound of protein. They just do this exaggerated thing. It's just become so, people are so hyper focused on that some of these things seem like, ugh. Like, I forget what the way she said was like, this is horrible human behavior.
Right. Well, I think to that point, like, I think we are.
It can be.
We are like programmed in a way to follow like a prescription of what your day is supposed to be, and these 13 things like throw a lot of curveballs at you. And so you see it and you're like, I can't do that. And then again, you go back to the how versus the won't. It's like, well, actually,
and
why the hell not?
For me, and I can't exactly put my finger on it, but when I started kind of digging into some of this stuff, what I realized was that trying to make more money or trying to advance your career was almost like like taboo, like a dirty word. It was like, it's all you care about is money. And it's like, no, it's not all I care about. But
I want to make more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get
that
like
all the time. You work too much. I'm like, yeah, but I like it. I want to.
Yeah. And you can definitely go too far with that.
Oh yeah.
And I've been on both kind of, I don't want to say both sides, but I've had ups and downs in terms of like the workload, and anybody who's opened a gym will tell you, especially a CrossFit gym, like it's not a high paying job and there's going to be a lot of hours involved until you can kind of figure out. And even if you sit down, like, I'm watching podcasts now about guys that are making $100K a month on a gym. And it's like, there's like 5 of those guys. There's like
You're
5
right.
of those guys in the country.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that sounds, it fires you up a little bit because you're like, oh, it can be done. But they're 9 times out of 10, they're in freaking New York or somewhere. Right. And it's like, the cost of living for just to have a, tiny little apartment is, $5 to $10 grand a month just to keep yourself fed and have a bed to sleep in. So yeah, I love this list, but I think just to sum it all up, like as we move forward with topics, they will be health and wealth. Mm-hmm. I think this list has been a little more on the wealth side because it's business oriented. But it's also like the underlying. That's why was a great place to start though too, because the underlying foundation is health. It's mental health. Mm-hmm. It's like
I think it's helped shape definitions of how we view health and wealth.
Yeah,
because health is very like healthy.
Yeah,
eat your greens. Sure, wealthy, make money, but like,
that is important.
That is important, but this list I think helps kind of set the stage for
balance. I should have put this on like a definition.
Scale. Oh
like
yeah. Yeah.
The balance scale.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's a nice little simple.
This is nice. Yeah.
Logo.
Easy to read.
So that concludes our 13
habits to do less.
Habits to do so you can do less. 13 habits to do more so you can do less.
So you can do less.
By Miss or Mrs. Cody Sanchez. So thanks for that. And thank you for tuning in. If you did, if you're watching us live, which you're not, I can see on the screen. There's no one.
Great.
Lucky, but you'll watch it later.
Watch it later.
Yep, you can watch it on right now. I may or may not get this back into kind of like Spotify podcast rotation, but right now you can watch it on Facebook and YouTube. YouTube has podcasts now.
Oh, nice.
So
like, follow, and subscribe.
Yeah, like, follow, and subscribe under the Gambit Fitness platform. John, thanks as always for joining
Andrew.
me.
Thank you.
And if you tuned in, thanks for tuning in. And we'll be back in either 1 or 2 weeks. Either 1 or 2 weeks. Keep an eye out for the going live notification on Facebook and YouTube, as we'll try to get that up ahead of time. There it is.
Love it.